Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, I wanted to go over a topic that some of you guys were talking about in the comment section, and you guys wanted me to highlight on it from a perspective of what I see as a therapist and my perspective of what's going on in couples, in relationships, and the perspective of how men and women kind of connect in these dynamics, okay? And a lot of you guys wanted me to expand upon the concept of feminism. I'm not a historian. I didn't study history. Clearly, I told you I'm studying psychology. So a lot of this might not be completely accurate, but we're going to touch on that, and we're going to touch on why people believe there's a lack of good men, even though I don't necessarily think that's true. So what are the dynamics that makes it so? So first, I want to talk about what I specialize in as a therapist so that you guys know where some of this might be coming from. I might be biased because of the types of people I'm seeing. I specialize in anger. A lot of you guys know that. Personality disorders, marital issues, and attachment issues, particularly individuals who are very hyper independent. Maybe they fear commitment or they're slower to commit. They might be uncomfortable with intimacy to some extent. And a lot of them don't like being told what to do, or they may have some control issues, okay? And so what I see in these dynamics, okay, if I'm working with a couple, which most of my caseload is couples, I often see transparency with the men. They admit that they don't understand ladies, but ladies often insist that they understand men, and often they come to me, and I've talked about this in another video. They might come to me and say in couples therapy, this is what's wrong with my husband, X, Y, and Z, this is where this is coming from, can you fix him? Almost literally. And that's not how couples therapy works. I'm not just going to fix your husband, okay? We're trying to work on the marriage together and try and figure out where compromise is needed, how we can communicate in a cleaner fashion. And so I don't think that men and women are less or more complicated than the other. What I think is that we just don't understand one another. And I think that's okay. And I think trying to understand one another is the first or one of the most important steps to having a healthy and happy marriage or relationship. And so is the current feminism movement a factor? I think so. I don't know how to interpret feminism necessarily, the terminology, but what I am understanding and what I'm seeing is originally, I believe, feminism was to help ladies get more opportunities, which I think is wonderful, right? No one wants to be a servant of somebody. You want a woman to marry you because she likes you, not just because she feels like you're an opportunity. So it's good that ladies are able to have more of a choice. And I think that's good. But I think what ends up happening is a lot of times now it's like the gender, male and female, they're like competing for dominance, when I think it's more about a middle ground, like equal but different, right? We're different. All of us are. But a lot of ladies have more similarities with other women, and then men have more similarities with other men. I think that's just by design, okay? And understanding the opposite gender instead of trying to change them or try and shut them down or dominate them, I think is a better strategy. Because if you want to have a relationship with a man or a woman, you want to understand them, not hate them. And so that is my perspective of feminism. I think it created some sense of gender wars. And I do think that that is part of why a lot of people think there are not good men, because the standard is just now changing and things are fluctuating a lot. And we're going to talk about those factors today. But of course, not all ladies are like that. So in short, I don't think there's a shortage of good men. I think the perspective of good men has just changed. So what are the factors that lead women to think there's a lack of good men? I think actually the first one is believing that he has to be husband. Sorry, I'm going to take my bracelet off. It's a little heavy. Believing that a husband, boyfriend, or marriage material is something that a man is right away. I don't think anyone is any particular material or whatever it is right away, because I believe marriage and relationships are about growth and learning. I feel that we learn better together, and you learn what, let's say, your girlfriend, her preferences and her connection to what you as a man would become when you're a husband. You're not going to be a husband in day one. You don't marry someone on day one, right? It takes years, right? Commonly from my practice and what I've seen as a therapist, it takes 3 to 6 years is the common timeline. At least I'm seeing, could be wrong. But, so he doesn't need to be husband material in day one. He can be that when he's ready to marry you and when you're ready to marry him. And so I think understanding that men change in a good way and women change in a good way, hopefully, is the goal a relationship. It's not that it's going to be perfect right away. I think that comes from a mindset of like scarcity or anxiety. I think it comes from fear. You're not trusting them that they're going to change, or you don't trust yourself that you're going to pick the right person. And so that's what I think is part of the reason that a lot of people think there's a lack of good men, because you think he has to be an amazing man based on your perspective today. And I just don't think that's how it works. The next one is having a specific criteria for what a good man is. This one particularly annoys me personally. I don't talk much about my personal life on here, but some of you guys want me to. But this one is personal, so I'm going to probably be pretty biased. This annoys me because it reminds me of my mom. She is like this, and it's really weird to me. It bothers me a lot. A lot of ladies on my mom's side of the family is like this, and it doesn't mesh well with maybe how I perceive people. She has like a specific like criteria of what a man should be, and sometimes I feel like it's not reasonable, because if you have such a specific criteria of him, why do you not have a specific criteria of yourself? Like it doesn't make sense, and it's very annoying to me, because you're never going to have a relationship then if you have such a specific criteria. I get that if you want him to not have anger problems to which he like punches a hole in the wall, I think that's a pretty reasonable goal. But if you think he should never have like an inch or an ounce of anger, I don't feel like that's normal. I think a lot of people, both men and women, get a little annoyed or frustrated in general. And I think that's unreasonable. If you're expecting that he's always going to understand how you feel and he's going to, bend over backwards for you every time, I feel like that's not healthy. You're going to marry a person, not an object to your own fantasy. And so I think having a very specific criteria of what a man is shows that you're not willing to learn him, the guy that you are going to love or going to marry or whoever it is. He's different from another man. Like, you have to learn who he is. And I think the understanding of there's not a lot of good men is the fact that you judged him without learning who he is. You judged him from some random specifics and without even giving him a chance. I feel like that's really unfair, and I don't like that. It just really annoys me. The next one is holding on to his mistakes. We all have made mistakes. I have made so many, right? We all make so many mistakes that, I'm ashamed of my mistakes. I'm sure you guys are ashamed of your mistakes as well. And I have a fair share. But holding on to somebody's mistakes is I feel like you're never going to get to learn who this person is. I have people in my past that I know I did a lot wrong. So I get that, but we don't need to get too much into that. But I wouldn't like if someone held on to my mistakes, and people in my life do. And for that reason, I no longer have connection with them, even though I changed so much. But similarly, if your husband makes a mistake for whatever reason, let's say he used to be really, he spent a lot of money. I don't know. He bought this really expensive truck and he didn't pay for it in full. And now he's got this $800 truck payment every month. And he's also not doing well at work. He's frustrated and whatever it is. And you feel upset at him because he bought this truck. I get that. That is very annoying. If he's your husband, that affects you. However, I don't think you should hold on to it and just remember this years and years and years down the line when you guys are 20 years into your marriage and you still are talking about this truck that he bought in his 20s and 30s, right? I feel like that makes the marriage decline. And you think that he's not a good man because you keep remembering he bought this truck instead of remembering all the things that he has done. The fact that he does work. Maybe he's a firefighter, that he saves lives, right? You're not thinking about that. You're just stuck on the truck. And so I feel like this is part of the reason why people think there's a lack of good men, because a perception of the fact that he's just held back by his mistakes, which isn't fair. The next one is thinking that just because he reacts the way that he doesn't react the way that you expect him to, you think that he doesn't care. That's not true. A lot of men react differently than ladies. That's by design. That's okay, right? But he's not going to react the same way you do, right? If you tell a girlfriend that somebody was, I don't know, mean to you or whatever it is, a lot of girls might be like, oh, they didn't mean it like that. Or that's, I'm so sorry you feel that way. But if you tell your boyfriend, they're going to be like, oh, that's because that girl was jealous. Like, just don't hang out with her. right? They're just going to cut it very blunt. Or why are you letting that get under your skin? She's meaningless to you. Or why do you even care about her? Like, her decisions don't make sense. Like, why do you even worry about how she feels, right? Let's say somebody made fun of you and you tell your boyfriend that. That's probably what he's going to say. I know mine's would, right? But your girl, like your friend who's a female, she might say, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, maybe she didn't mean it like that, whatever it is, right? And so reactions are very different. But just because your boyfriend or this man or whatever says, oh, she's just jealous of you, who cares? Ignore her, right? Doesn't mean he doesn't care. He's very cut to the point. Men are just like that typically by nature, and that's okay. That's part of what makes women attracted to them, right? Like you're happy that he can help you and solve your problems. That's what I imagine. And so that's what he wants to do. That's what he likes to do, right? And so appreciating what he does do for your life, because you don't want him to be a clone of you. You already have yourself. You want him to be a little different, I imagine, because he adds to your life. I think people don't recognize that good men are not going to be like what a good woman is. They're different. Like that's by design. So that's my perspective. Could be wrong, but a lot of this is speculative, right? That's the point of this video. The next one is when he says something, immediately thinking that you know better than what he said. I've talked about this before, but this happens in couples therapy so much. It is so common that it's actually hard to move forward in couples sessions because this happens. Like, we could be stuck on this session for like this moment in the session for like 35 minutes and we only have like 10, 15 minutes left in the session, right? Because let's say he says something like, oh yeah, I'm frustrated at work today. That's the reason why I was upset. That maybe that's why I raised my voice at my wife. I shouldn't have done it, but I was just really frustrated at my boss had a really tough day. I feel like she doesn't hear me and I accidentally raised my voice. I shouldn't have. Let's say he said that and she's like, no, that's not the reason. It's because you have low self-esteem and you're still not over the passing of your dad, which maybe it's a correlation. But sometimes I see women, they go really deep in the psychology when it's really not that. It's not that deep, right? Oh, it's because he lost his dad at 10 years old and his best friend moved away and X, Y, and Z and details, when it's probably exactly what he said. It may be there's a correlation, but when you pick so much at the details of him, you break him apart and now you think he's not a good man because you think, oh, he's not listening to me. He's not solving this trauma of his dad passing or leaving or whatever we were just talking about, right? Instead of thinking, well, he's in therapy or whatever he's doing, he's telling you how he feels. That is him being a good man. He's telling you, oh, I had a stressful day at work. Sorry, I yelled. That is him being a good man. He's telling you how he feels, right? He could lie, right? But he's not. He's telling you the truth. And so I know this video is all over the place. Incredibly busy day, but I like to be honest with you guys, and my disposition is not always going to be perfect. I understand that some of you guys want like a very perfect movie like video. That's never going to be me. I record this in my bedroom, oftentimes after work. So I just hope that this helps somebody. Please like, subscribe. I will see you in the next one.